The numbers are staggering. The number of NYPD officers on the job, now the lowest in more than 3 decades, with about 200 cops reportedly leaving each month. Former NYPD Commissioner and Guardian Group CEO Ray Kelly is here to react. Mr. Commissioner, thanks for being here. Why is this happening?
Well, that's a good question, Pete. I think a lot of this developed after the death of George Floyd. Cops were demonized, they were vilified, thousands of them started to leave, and that hemorrhaging is continuing, not only in New York City, but other major cities as well. And I think we have to do more to find out precisely why they're leaving and to try to address it. I think we need an outside consultant to come in to say the NYPD do the exit interviews of police officers who are leaving, accumulate that data, and make recommendations as to how we can take some of these problems on. Some may be solvable, some aren't solvable, but at least we'll be able to identify directly what the problems are.
It's a good idea. They should be doing that already, getting a sense of why people would be prematurely leaving the force. But I'm guessing some of it has to do with things the NYPD could not affect themselves. Radical DAs that are letting criminals out of jail, so it's a catch and release program, or sanctuary city policies that have an illegal crisis. So there's only so much the NYPD can do, right?
Yes, but I think it's important to clarify that and to put that out in the open. What can be affected and what can't be. But you're right, there's a lot of problems in the environment that I think it's more difficult now to be a police officer, certainly in New York, than it's ever been, certainly when I was a police officer. So, but I'd like to see those problems in black and white. I'd like to have an objective analysis of them. So at least politicians or executives in the police department can attempt to address it.
That's a big phrase, more difficult than it's ever been, is from someone who knows what it has looked like in the past. That's important. Let me put up the stats real quick for you, Mr. Commissioner, of the number of New York police officers leaving the force. I mentioned it was 200 per month right now, more or less. In this year overall, 823 officers have left in 2024. As some people say, there is a quality to quantity in and of itself. How does policing change when you have less officers?
Well, you're much more reactive. You're not proactive. You're not doing things to prevent crime. You're responding to 9/11 calls, and the response time is much longer. And of course, attendant to this problem is the fact that they can't hire the replacements of officers who are leaving. That's a big problem. And then there's a quality issue as to exactly who are you hiring, with the job becoming less desirable. So there's lots of issues here, and I think they have to be taken head on, and I haven't seen that happening from City Hall.
It's true. You're always going to have attrition, but if you can recruit more than are leaving, then you're in good shape. But if it's perceived that the profession is under assault, you don't have people signing up. It's in many ways just like the military. Commissioner Ray Kelly, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.